Welcome everybody to the 2021 Pastry Summit. I'm Sean Winter, president of Pastry Arts Magazine, and today we have a phenomenal guest, Auzerais from Blondery. Auzerais, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So today's topic, we're going to dive into how Auzerais has set up a virtual bakery, but also does some other things too, like pop-ups and things of that nature. So we're going to dive right into that. But first, Auzerais, for anybody that doesn't know who you are at this point, can you give just a brief background about yourself and what you currently do?
Yeah, so my name's Auzerais. I grew up in Hayward, California, which is in the Bay Area. I went to Johnson Wells in Providence, Rhode Island. I was the pastry sous chef at Bouchon Bakery in both Yountville and in New York. I staged at French Laundry, Per Se, Danielle, before starting Blondery. Blondery is a virtual bakery where we make and ship blondies and other blondie-related treats nationwide. And yeah, we've grown a lot over the past year or two, and I'm happy to share my experiences with you guys, and hopefully some of it will resonate and you guys can move forward with it in your own ventures.
Outstanding. So jumping right into the topic. So what prompted you to want to open up your own now virtual bakery essentially? So number one, I guess, when did that happen, that timeline? And then what was really that motivating factor that inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so I would say I've been making the blondies, the pecan and salted caramel blondies, for about 10 years. And I started Blondery kind of by accident. So when I moved to New York from the Bay Area, my family would ask me, like, where are the blondies? Like, you need to send blondies back home or come home and make them. And I wanted to stay in New York, so I just would send them back home. But I opened a website just for them, just to keep track of the orders. And I ended up selling over 500 orders in a 2-week time frame. So I was like, okay, maybe this is something, right? So maybe something's here. And ever since then, I started taking it a little more seriously. And it's just every year I feel like I get a little more serious about it. And it's showing me that, like, it's a valid business that people want.
And so what would you say was one of the hardest parts of transitioning into, we'll say, full-time pastry entrepreneur with your own business? What would you say was the most difficult part?
Um, Learning the business side, I guess. I grew up in restaurants, but how my grandmother ran her restaurant is completely different from running a basically virtual business, a virtual food business at that. So like, I don't have a storefront. Some of the marketing techniques that restaurants can use, I can't really use. So just learning more about my customer, because I think a lot of people take that part for, like, they don't think about it too much, but especially in the virtual space, you need to know exactly who your customer is and what they're looking for.
Yeah, great point. And so now, getting right into it, talk us through your kind of just at a maybe high level, that business model. What does that look like at a high level?
Yeah, so we're technically seasonal. Seasonal meaning I do drops when I want to, though. It doesn't mean that it's like playing off the seasons. Um, and I mean, the business model is something I'm kind of making up, but also I think it models some of the clothing lines to it. So I know, like, Ivy Park by Beyonce, her line isn't sold in stores. I think, no, actually it is. It's sold in Adidas stores, but it's not all the way throughout the year. It's whenever she feels like releasing a new collection. Same with Yeezys, same with Supreme. Clothing lines and shoe lines have been doing it forever. But for food, it's challenging because sometimes my customers don't get it. They don't understand, like, why can't I order this now? Or why is your shop closed? Does that mean you're closed forever? Especially if they're new customers, they don't understand it. So I had created a wait list. So I have a wait list now of over 8,000 people waiting for my next drop. um, And then in the between time, I do pop-ups. So you can come to a pop-up at either in New York. Before we were doing like New York, Jersey, Cali. But now with COVID, we're kind of limited to New York for now. Later this year, we'll be doing some stuff other places. But yeah, I do pop-ups in the meantime. I still accept corporate orders in between that time. And yeah, like we just like, it's been great because one, I'm capturing my customers' contact information through the wait list. So it's not like I can't keep in contact with them, which has been great. And then there's so many aspects to this.
There are.
Yeah.
Once you go into an online kind of business model, there really is. Now, I do want to ask though, what does production look like when you are kind of in season, if you will, to kind of use your words? So, where are you producing? Is it maybe a commissary kitchen? Is it, home based? What does that look like essentially? So the production, just so people can kind of understand that model.
Yeah. So I started off at home. And then early last year, I outgrew my home. And I say do that because I know that there's a lot of incubator kitchens and I'm sure they mean well, but you have to have proof of concept before you go and pay for kitchen space. Or otherwise you're going to run yourself out of business. I had more than enough monthly income to pay for a space when I moved into my kitchen space. So right now we're in, there's a bakery here in New York and they have multiple locations around the city. However, they've started baking their things in one central location. So all of their other physical locations are simply retail stores. So we started renting out just the bakery space and then they run their retail space out of the front. So it worked out perfectly because we have we don't have to share a kitchen, basically. I really did not want to do the incubator or commissary kitchen. I wanted to like control the environment and like set the tone, you know what I mean?
So you have a setup now to where you can leave stuff there, it sounds like, and then so you just kind of have an ongoing rent situation. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's great.
I pay them monthly. I pay them monthly and they have like a small retail space and then they use some of the space downstairs for like cups and whatever else retail stuff they do. Because they have like they have a coffee shop basically in the front. And then they get their pastries delivered every day. So we share, they have a small side of the walk-in, but like most of the space is ours, which I'm super lucky to have like, and that wasn't necessarily something that was advertised online. It was just me knowing someone who knew someone and yeah.
That networking, it's so key. It's so key. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to take a couple of different paths. So for those that are thinking that they have the ability right now to out of their home do some type of virtual bakery, let's kind of take that path first. So dialing it back to where you started and get a couple of thoughts and advice points, and then we'll progress it. So when we go back to when you got started out of your house, for those that again can say to themselves they think that they're ready to do that and they want to maybe test that out, what's your advice for them? What are some of the advice, the cautions, the considerations, for those people that are wanting to maybe just get started from that standpoint?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is get your product in front of people who have no vested interest in your feelings. So meaning they will tell you the truth on if your product is nasty or needs some work or whatever. Like, and obviously taste is very subjective. So you need to get it in front of a big pool of people. I would say at least 100 people and give out samples, because if you give someone a sample and they say, okay, how much is it? Then you know that your product is okay because they're willing to pay for it. So my best outlet for doing that was free farmers markets or flea markets, or even very low cost farmers markets. That's the first thing. It's getting your product in front of people who have no vested interest. Number two is like hire to your strengths. So if you feel like you have a great product and it's beautiful, but you're not that good at taking pictures, which was me, I hired a photographer, and photographers can range between $50 an hour to $1,000 and more dollars an hour. There's photographers at all levels of skill. And really you just need to create, what I did was I created a shot list of what I wanted them to take photos of, and like said, okay, for 4 hours, we're gonna try to take as many of these photos as possible. You'll drop them in my Google Drive box, and then I'm gonna post them on my Instagram and use them on my website. That small investment, I think my first photo shoot maybe was $250. And I still use those photos today. Like the photos of me like squeezing the butter or like the pecans in my hand, those are from my first ever photo shoot. So if you don't, images are gonna be very important when running a virtual bakery, but you also don't wanna be like McDonald's. And you know how they have like very stylized photos and the product doesn't look anything like that. They can get away with that, but as a small company, your customers are gonna like air you out on that. So if your product shows up not looking like how it did in the photo, you're gonna be out of business very quickly because essentially you're like catfishing. The third thing is go to where your customers are. So after you have like proof of concept, you can prove that someone's willing to pay for your products and you have your images, then you need to go see like, where are my customers actually shopping? And that's actually how I got into Bloomingdale's, was I went there with samples and was like, I need to be here because I know my customer is here. So can you please try these samples? And yeah, I think like those are the top three things I say for virtual businesses, food businesses or bakeries. Take care of those three things first.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You know, I'm stuck on a show called The Prophet right now. I don't know if you've seen that, but one of the things that Marcus goes after a lot of times, which caught my interest, was either bakeries or chocolate shops. You know, that's kind of in his repertoire. And and I remember one episode where he did set up a table for people who had some type of product, and I forget what it was, but it was that same thing that you said, that number one, that getting people's feedback, right? Set up those samples, get people's feedback who are not vested. And I love what you said. If someone asks how much this is, you know that's some really good feedback right there. So that is such great advice. So that takes care of people that are thinking about getting started in terms of their product. Now, what about from, you know, I'll add some 2 cents for me. I feel like sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, that people may overcomplicate the process or try and overcomplicate maybe the business model. And what I mean is that sometimes I think people think they need this fancy website and this, you know, all these options and things, when on a basic level, you can use Venmo and PayPal and just an invoice, right? So how is it that you started early on, just so that people can understand, and maybe what's your thoughts or advice as it relates to maybe taking orders essentially? You know, do they have to have this big branding and, you know, all these pages on the website, or can it be a little bit more simplified?
Yeah, I think it can be simplified, but there is a standard that people are looking for.
Great point.
So it's fine, you know, to have one page on your website and it says shop here, and then they click a button and then they can check out. Squarespace makes it extremely easy. I think Squarespace is where I started, and then I moved to Shopify. I would not suggest taking payments via Venmo or PayPal. I wouldn't, because I just feel like the perception of your brand is then that you have to think about, like, one, your customer experience. So it's not easy for them to like, okay, then I have to find your Venmo, and then like it's easier for them to just check out on a website. And really, like, websites are going to be a little bit obsolete soon too, because now everyone has an app, right? So really we need to be thinking that far. But sure, we'll start with like a website is very simple, very easy to put together. And YouTube is free and there's so much information out there. There's really no excuse at this point to not have a website for your company and for them not to be able to check out on your website. I think that that's a standard that everyone should set for themselves, is that I'm going to have a website where my customers can place an order and check out, because it's not hard.
Yeah, I love that. That's great feedback, and I love how you brought up. So you start on Squarespace, move to Shopify. You and I have talked before this about Shopify. We use Shopify too, and it's just kind of one of those all-in-one solutions that can help you get up to speed really quickly for not a lot of money. I mean, I think their basic one is $9, and then it's like $29 and $79, but you can start right in the middle with the $29 a month and have plenty of options to be able to build out something and really easily. So yeah, I love that insight. So now, what would you say helped you go from having the bakery, virtual bakery where you're selling out of your house, to then having enough revenue, as you said, to then afford a space, to then get a space, right? There's an inflection point there. What helped you get to that inflection point and grow to that point where you were ready to then take on a space and take the business to the next level? What would you say that was?
Making sure every single order I was putting out was the best quality order, because I haven't done any paid marketing. I haven't done any like extreme marketing campaigns. Most of my growth has been attributed to just word of mouth. Up until recently, we started getting press, but even that, it's word of mouth. Like, it's not like I reached out to them and said, hey, can you write about me? They've been coming to me asking like, hey, can we put you in this? So I concentrated on my customers that were there. I wasn't really thinking about, oh, who's coming. I was just like, this Sally ordered 24 pieces of pecan and salted caramel, and I'm going to make sure they're moist. I'm going to make sure they're packed correctly. I'm going to make sure that she gets them in time. I used to call my customers after they played like a week or so after they placed their order and they received it. I would call them and be like, hey, just checking in, see if you had any feedback on your order. And a few of them would be like, this is unsustainable, right? Like, do you call all your customers? I'm like, yeah, like I don't have that many. Like, so I had the time to do that. And some of those people still order today. And it was also me getting feedback constantly. I'm constantly, even now, I harass my customers for reviews, honest reviews. I don't want to hear just the positive things. I want to hear like you were disappointed at the shipping time, or you felt like something was dry. Again, taste is very subjective, so I try not to take it personal, but obviously like I would reship orders all the time. Like if they were like, it was dry, I would reship it. And eventually I was like, okay, Auzerais, people don't have to like your products. Like they don't have to, and you're like running yourself out of business by like remaking all this stuff. But customer service has been and will continue to be the biggest thing for me. I probably will never outsource it because I want to control that experience, and I want to make sure that like I have a direct line of communication with my customer. So making sure the best product, in short, making sure you're putting out the best product for the customers you do have, and then also focusing on your customer service.
You picking up the phone and calling people, that is a gem of an insight right there. For anybody listening to this that's not doing something like that, that's pretty powerful. My only how I can relate is with Pastry Arts. We're only, I think we're 2.5 years, but I personally was answering for at least the first 18 months every single customer kind of customer service type question. How do I access this? How do I get that? I didn't get this. I didn't get that. And just responding. But what you just said was key. It gives you that feedback. And it helps you identify some flaws. And then as you kind of grow, it helps you create, like for us now, it helps you create an SOP, right? You know, a standard operating procedure, a process flow that you can then, you know, you've gone through that. And then I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I think you and I had talked about this before. It's then starting to create those processes, creating those SOPs so things can be sustainable. Because when you said that you were baking and reshipping and kind of running yourself ragged, you can, as a business owner, you can kind of get stirred up. So yeah. I love that. I love that. So now getting into a space, you what is it that you think that has helped you sustain now at that level, right? Because for a while you're, you know, baking out of the house, you hit that inflection point. What's something that's keeping you you know, at that level now? Is it your processes, your logistics, your flow, or is it kind of sticking to that same tried and true customer service thing?
It's the same, yeah. And I'm glad you asked that question, because it's a question that people ask me, or like, and I haven't really thought about it, but it's the same. It's literally the same thing. Like, because we'll do a corporate order and they love it. And I'll more times than not, with like right after I ship a corporate order, I'll get an email from someone else saying, oh, so-and-so referred me because they're the COO of this company that you just did this corporate order for. Like, because, you know, my team knows that I'm like crazy, because I obsess over the smallest details of things. And I make it so that in their mind, like, it becomes like a habit, that perfectionism is like a habit for them to try to achieve. We don't put out subpar products. We just don't. Hence why we have trim. We sell trim, because if it's not a perfect square, we're not going to put it in the box. And it turned into something that we're out of trim. Like, now people are buying so much trim that like we have to bake blondies so we can have trim. Like, it's yeah.
I absolutely love that. And so one of the things that you've done is pop-ups, as you had mentioned. So can you walk us through how does that either help in the overall business, or what does that look like from like a standalone, you know, is it kind of standalone in isolation, or is it part of that kind of holistic business plan or strategy?
I think it works in tandem. Pop-ups I use mostly for feedback. Mostly. I make way more money doing a drop online than I do at a pop-up. But pop-ups give me the opportunity to, one, interact with like my best customers. These are people who either they're just meeting me, or they're people who order from me and they want to interact with me in person, because it's all been virtual. So they come to a pop-up, and just thinking about the mindset of that person is like, I love this product so much. I can order it online, but I'm going to go and meet her. Like, they deserve for me to be there. Like, I'm so appreciative of those people. But yeah, I listen to the questions that my customers ask. That's the biggest thing at pop-ups, is listening to what they ask, because they won't necessarily say you need to have a gluten-free option. They'll just ask, do you have a gluten-free option? And you say no, and they walk away. I used to take a tally of how many people would ask me that, because I wanted to know, was it enough for me to consider having a gluten-free option? And it was. They ask, do you do corporate gifting? So now I know, have my corporate gifting brochure there, so that I can give it to them when they ask. I think the questions people ask give you a lot of information about who they are. How much is it? What's included? Those questions help me actually build out my website. Like, it helped me to create my FAQs. It helped me with my photography. So now, you know, the photos are close up and they show exactly which piece you're getting. All of these things, I feel like, from pop-ups, made it so that I could be successful online.
Wow. And I love
it.
Sorry, say that again.
You can't skip that process. You have to just go through it. You have to churn through it. There's days I made like $67. Like there's days I made $1,000. I think that was the most I've ever made at a pop-up in 2019. But yeah, you have to go through that process. Really, I feel like everything that's happening for me right now and everything that will happen for me is because of the time I allowed it to happen. Too many times I think we get discouraged because we only made $67. Just think if I would have stopped that one day when I made $67. Like, yeah.
So true. So true. It reminds me of a graphic I've seen before where you've got someone digging and it's like a old time gold digging kind of scenario, and someone digging and you can kind of see a cut of the earth, and you've got gold and you've got about like a foot left, and you see them digging, and then like the next scene they give up and they're walking away and the gold is a foot away. You just have to go a little bit larger. I think one of the hardest things when you are on your own is knowing when to cut losses and knowing when to continue. And I think, I learned from someone, it's not always monetary. You mentioned that $67 is that you've got to look for all of these little mini signs. It could be a customer that sent you an email. It could be a review that you received. It could be someone asking a question about potentially ordering. And all these little mini signs that you can see. And it sounds like you paid attention to that even during times where it was a little difficult. So a question logistically about the pop-ups. Do you have a certain ordering time period and then you show up and then essentially people, you're kind of handing out orders, or do you have a product on hand for then people to come and then kind of pick and choose? What's the kind of model there?
The second one.
Okay.
I haven't done any where they pre-order. At the beginning of COVID, I was doing a little bit, but it was like maybe 5 pre-orders, and then the rest I would sell out just by being there. Especially if you're a new vendor at wherever you're going. So I do farmers markets upstate, and I was a new vendor. So why would they pre-order? They've never tried the product. Like, you know what I mean? Now some of my customers will DM me and say, hey, can you hold like this flavor or whatever? Because they know I sell out very quickly, but I don't really accept pre-orders. They can DM me and say like, can you hold this? But I don't accept pre-orders. I think I'm always the underdog wherever I go, and I like it like that. I don't want to be like the biggest fish in the pond, so I'm always learning from other vendors. That's another thing is like at pop-ups, the other vendors will put you on to some good stuff. So like I used to carry around IKEA bags and they're heavy, and then another vendor at a pop-up told me you should get a suitcase. So now all my stuff is in a suitcase. Also, they'll tell you which markets are good, which ones are not. One guy is teaching me how to use Salesforce to keep track of my customers. Like there's so many things that you can learn at pop-ups from the people around you and also your customers. It's really worth it to me. I'm starting another series in June because I love doing it. I love learning more about my customers and about the business that I'm in.
I love it. I love it. So last topic as we kind of wrap up is, I know you and I had talked before about how sometimes it's hard to piece together maybe the tools or the technology to use to kind of create all of this stuff. So can you walk us through a little bit about what is your setup, right? So for instance, we know you use Shopify for your store, and this, to put it in context, this is for people that are thinking, I have the skill set, I can do this, and then they get online and start getting lost in all this information. But if they hear from you, what's your setup? So Shopify you have, and that helps you take the payments, that's your website. What other things do you have that work in tandem to kind of manage that business?
Let's just look.
Oh, there we go.
I have it pulled up so I can tell you very quickly. So Shopify is how I take payments and how people can order. And then it feeds into ShipStation, which is how I ship all my orders, because I ship with FedEx, and FedEx and Shopify don't have a natural integration. So it's difficult. You can't print a shipping label for FedEx from Shopify. Very weird. And then I use MailChimp to store my customers' data. And that sounds bad, but it's data that you give me. So it's like your email, your first name, your and your birthday. You give me that when you sign up for my wait list. So if you're looking to order, you come to my website, it says join the wait list. It takes you to a landing page, which gives me that information. When I restock.
And really quick on that point, your landing page is on Shopify that you've created, that it redirects, or it's on with MailChimp.
It's with MailChimp.
Got it. And for anybody that doesn't know MailChimp, it's a email service provider, right? So like you said, way to capture emails, way to communicate with them with a newsletter or a product release. Sorry, go ahead. So restocking now.
Yep. So then when I restock, I send out an email through MailChimp to my subscribers. And then like in the email, you can put buttons that connect back to your website. So they'll direct them to my website. They'll purchase the product. It goes to ShipStation. After 5 days after they receive their order, they get an email from me asking for a review from an app called Stamped.io.
Okay.
And that's also who I run my loyalty program through. So I forget how it works, but if you leave a review, if you purchase a certain amount, you get these points, and then you can redeem them on my website. It's a loyalty program, just like any other loyalty program.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. While the store is open, I use back in stock alerts. I think that's literally what it's called. Yeah, back in stock alerts. So on each product page, so when I'm open, there's no wait list because I'm just open. So, but sometimes products sell out very quickly because I have a wait list. You can sign up again, like if you missed it or something, you can sign up under each product that you're interested in to be alerted when it's back in stock. And then it cycles you back to my website.
Jumping back really quick, you said 5 days after they purchase, just in case some don't understand how maybe these tools work, but you're not creating an email personally every time, but you have it automated via MailChimp, I believe, to where as soon as someone purchases, 5 days later, there's an automatic email with an automatic template that goes out to them, and it asks them for that review. Yep. And the name of that app, when just so that people can understand, I can understand, but when Auzerais, you're saying apps, how Shopify works is that they have a series of apps within the Shopify platform that you can either purchase or integrate with. So once you sign up for Shopify, you go to their quote app store, and then you can start finding all of these ones that you were mentioning. And the loyalty one, say it one more time. It was
Stamped.io.
Stamped.io. And then that runs that loyalty program. And then the restock one.
It's called Back in Stock.
Back in Stock, great. So those are two apps. I'm getting so excited. I'm a little bit of a tech nerd, as I had shared with you before, but these are the tools that I think sometimes elude people when they're getting, trying to conceptualize how do they create a virtual bakery, right? It doesn't magically happen, and there's no blueprint, there's no rule book that says, here, you use these apps, you do this, here's a workflow. So I love how you shared that.
Yeah, of course. And I think of it as just like your phone. Like Shopify is your phone, and you can add the apps that you need. There's a monthly premium that you pay usually. Some of them have like 7-day free trials or 14-day free trials, but it really allows you to customize the features that you need. If any feature you need, there's probably an app for it on Shopify. And ShipStation, I didn't feel had the same when I was Blowing up, I guess. So that's why I switched to Shopify, because I just needed more flexibility. I needed more features. I'm sure it's changed by now, though.
And so, as the last question, for those that are inspired by everything that you shared, and they think to themselves, you know what, I can do this. I can step out. I can create something. You've shared kind of your logistics and workflow and how these things work. What's your advice for someone listening to this and thinking, I really think I can do this? What's your advice to them?
Prove it to yourself. That's the only person you have to prove it to. Prove it to yourself and go out there and do it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Go out and do it, right? Go out and do it. Seize the day. Is that carpe diem?
Yeah.
Carpe diem? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Well, Auzerais, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for taking the time and share this with everybody for the Pastry Summit this year.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to plug myself. You can follow me at Blondery on Instagram. And then I have a YouTube channel where I talk more about all of these things. It's, I think, Blondery LLC on YouTube. So yes, thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate this time. It's been great.
Absolutely. And I did forget that. Thank you so much, because you did mention the YouTube and we were going to bring it up toward the end. So my apologies, but yes, check that out, everybody. And check her out on social as well. And to contact you, essentially, just maybe check out your website, which is just blondery.com.
Blondery.com, or you can DM me on Instagram.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you so much, Auzerais.
Thank you. I appreciate it.